Books, books. I like books. I'm gonna read them all. Hi readers, Chris here. Welcome to my channel where I review fantasy, Stephen King, all sorts of books, and today I'm doing another episode of Fantasy and Face Masks. Today I'm playing a little bit of catch up, and I'm going to be talking about two books that I read all the way back in March, and those are Seize the Night by Sherilyn Kenyon and Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. And tonight's face mask is one I have not tried before. It is from First Aid Beauty, and it's called Calming Pore Purifying Mask. It is a wash-off one. I did read the directions, and this mask only takes about 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to keep the review short today. I always say that. It never works out, but I can't put on the mask and talk about the book at the same time, so I'm going to start with Seize the Night first. I'll put the picture up over here and put this on while I talk to you a little bit about this book. So Seize the Night is like the, I don't know, 5th, 6th-ish book in a whole series by Sherilyn Kenyon. And if you're not familiar with her at all, she basically writes paranormal romance books. So these books are intended to be straight up romance, like adult romance, and they're all supernatural. So there is this group of warriors called Dark Hunters, and they're basically people who have died or are going to die, make a deal with the gods that they can live forever and hunt down these other creatures called, they're basically demons, but they call them daemons, you know, a different name. So all the books in the series are about different Dark Hunter characters because they live for a long time, you know, they're cursed to live forever, they're hunters, they're warriors, blah, 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 blah. But of course, in every book, they meet a lady, etc., etc., etc. So in this particular book, we have a Dark Hunter named Valerius, and we had met Valerius in previous books, and he has a very not good reputation. He has some history with some of the other Dark Hunter characters. He's done a lot of, let's say, bad things in his life, and like basically no one likes him. But he meets this girl named Tabitha. And Tabitha, again, is a character we've met before in the series because Tabitha's sister has already married one of the Dark Hunters in a previous book. But Tabitha is like a stereotypical, like, tough girl type character. She doesn't take crap from anyone. She's kind of like a warrior in her own right. She helps others. She's like a really, you know, kick-ass type character. But for some reason, when she meets Valerius, even though, like I said, no one else likes him, Tabitha gives him a chance. And to Valerius, like, he's never met anyone that treats him like Tabitha does. She talks back to him. She's spunky, but she's also kind underneath. So he really does fall for her. So going into this book, you know, knowing that it's going to be a romance, the reason that I read these books occasionally is because I like the whole supernatural element because I don't read a lot of straight up romance, but because there are dark hunters and gods and vampires and werewolves and all these creatures, I like to read these books occasionally. And I think that the way that she writes the sex scenes, I'm just gonna say it like it is, the sex scenes is so like over the top and ridiculous that I actually find it funny. So I find these books really entertaining and funny. And that is what I was expecting going into this book. And early on in the book, there is a scene where Tabitha cooks dinner for Valerius. And Tabitha just happens to own an adult toy shop. She owns an adult toy shop. So when she cooks dinner for Valerius, she doesn't have any regular pasta lying around the house. She only has pasta that is shaped like boobs and other anatomy, let's say. So right away, going into this book, you know, in the early chapters, I was giggling a lot. I thought it was hilarious. I thought the whole I don't find food sexy, but I found it humorous, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a good time. This is perfect to read while I'm in Costa Rica. That's where I was at the time when I was reading this. It's going to be a great time. Okay, let me pause there and wipe off my fingers because I think I've got everything on good, and I'm going to let this sit for a minute. So like I said, I went into this book feeling pretty good. I'm like, okay, it's got the silly factor. It's got the sexy factor. Like, I think this is going to be a good time. However, after that point, the story got really deep into the lore of this world. It got really deep into the world building. It got really deep into the lore. And it ended up having this very complex plot. This complex plot where basically like a bad guy from a previous book was coming back. He was after Tabitha and her sister, and Valerius was going to protect them, but he had some beef with an old dark hunter. There's like layers and layers and layers to this story, and honestly, I did not want that. I did not want that. At the time that I was reading this book, I wanted a fun, sexy, supernatural romp. That is what I wanted. I did not want a complex, nuanced, layered book with all this heavy world building and strong character development. Like, normally that's the type of stuff I like. However, that is not what I wanted from this book, if that makes sense. So at the end of the day, it left me like I read 10 chapters, 20 chapters, and in my head I was like, where is the sex? Like, where is the steam? Where is the silly stuff that I wanted from this book? It was at the beginning, and then it does not come back until the end of the book. Like, it did not come back until the end. That left me feeling a little disappointed in this one because it did not have what I wanted from it. Now, again, that is just me. That is just my personal opinion. Someone else could read this one and absolutely love it. I personally have had a better reading experience with some of the other books in this series. I feel like some of the other books know what they are. They know what type of book they are, and they lean into it. I feel like this book was trying to pretend to be something that it wasn't. It was trying to pretend that it was like a sophisticated story, even though you have characters that are having intercourse like on top of their dinner food, which again, I don't find food sexy, but you know what? Someone else, that might float your boat. So those are my thoughts on Seize the Night. I am going to continue to read the books in the series. I have found so many of them bargain book hunting that I have a lot. I have a lot of these books because there are a lot of them. So I'm going to continue to read them, and hopefully the next one will work out better for me. Okay, I can definitely feel my skin tightening. It feels like I have plaster on my face right now, but that's okay. It hasn't quite been 10 minutes yet, so I'm going to switch gears and start talking about Crown of Midnight, which is the second book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. In book 1, Throne of Glass, we met Celaena, our main character here. She is a young girl. She is an assassin, like a famous assassin, but something had happened to her and she had gotten captured and she was kind of working in this prison, and then she got released from prison and was basically offered a deal from the king that was like, hey, I'm having a contest to figure out who's the strongest person, and if you win, you'll become my champion, you'll work for me, and maybe you can earn your freedom after you work for me for a certain number of years. So book 1 had a very simple plot. It was basically all about Celaena training for this competition, becoming the champion, blah, blah, blah. That's basically it. That's basically the whole plot of book 1. Book 2 is where things start to get really interesting. Because in book 1, I feel like you could tell that there is a lot more going on in the world. It's just the book did not have the time or the space to explore it. So book 2 really starts to peek the door open a little bit into the larger world. You know, we start to learn that there used to be magic in this world, but magic no longer exists. It may or may not have something to do with the king. We start to learn about how the king of this kingdom, Ardalan, the king here, is like really an awful person. He's a conqueror. He's done something to the magic, and he continues to just invade these villages and just destroy people. And he's responsible for a lot of terrible things. But Celaena starts to learn that there are murmurings of an underground rebellion going on. Oh yes. Book 2 is all about the rebellion that is starting to form, because you can't have a fantasy story with a king in power and not have a rebellion brewing. That is a very typical thing in fantasy. And yeah, it's here, and I actually like it in this story. I like it because Celaena finds herself in a very interesting position. She doesn't like the king, and she doesn't agree with what he's doing, but yet, because of what happened in the previous book, she is working for him. And the king is hiring her to go out and find these rebels and take care of them. I feel like book 1 was very much about a physical struggle for Celaena, her trying to build up her strength and fight all these champions. Book 2 is much more of an emotional journey for her, much more of a mental journey for her, because she really has to start to think about like what she wants to do now that she's out of prison, now that she's working for the king. Like, what does she really want to do with that? Like, what side does she want to be on? She has a best friend that she met in book 1, who is a princess from another land, Nehemia. And she is, again, also involved in this rebel group. And she wants Celaena to do certain things. She wants her to pick a side. But Celaena is very reluctant. She's very reluctant, mostly because I think because she knows the king so well. She knows the kind of power that he has. She knows what he can do. She's seen firsthand like the horrible things he can do. She doesn't want to put herself or anyone that she loves in danger. So it's very much a struggle for her. And I think I actually prefer this struggle more than the physical struggles that she had to overcome in book 1. So this is an example of a story that I really love the world building here and the character development. I really, really love it. Unlike the first book that was pretending to be an epic fantasy, this one is starting to feel like an epic fantasy. Book 1 was very, very simple, but book 2 has really started to open the door into this larger world. All these different kingdoms, all these different races. There's witches in this book. There's other races and other, not just humans living in the world. There's all these creatures. Like, you really start to see that there is so much more to this world to be explored. And I find that really exciting. I loved the first book, and honestly, I loved this one too. I had a great time reading it, and I couldn't put it down. I love the world building, I love the characters, and I love the plot of this one. There's mystery, there's intrigue, there's romance. I think there's even probably a little bit of humor at some parts, but I feel like this book, again, is a pretty well-rounded book and has a lot of the things that I like in it. And with that, I believe it has been 10 minutes now, so I'm going to go wash this off my face, and I will be right back to wrap this video up. Much better. I will say that having wiped all the cement off my face, my skin does feel as smooth as a baby's bottom. It does feel super, super, super soft and plump. I only got a little bit of water on myself, so all in all, I think this mask was a success. So just to wrap this video up, Seize the Night started off good, ended up a little bit disappointing, and Crown of Midnight was a great read, a great sequel to Throne of Glass, and I have very high hopes for the rest of this series. that is all for me today. So now I want to know from you, have you read either of these books? Have you read any of Sherilyn Kenyon's Dark Hunter books? Have you read any of the books in the Throne of Glass series? Let me know if you liked either of these, if you didn't like them, all your thoughts. Let me know in the comments section below. And as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out, and I will be back soon with more bookish videos. All right, everyone. Happy reading.